Yo, what's going on, everyone? Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and today... Jim, why do you look so...
Because I know it's coming.
What?
Things, Brian. Things.
All right, would you happen to be talking about the game we're about to review?
Oh, I'm talking about the game and the review we're about to do.
Wait. Goddamn light! Oh, there you go. Resident Evil 6. A lot of you could not wait for this review, because it's,
A lot of requests.
debatably the most hated Resident Evil game.
A lot of hate.
Is it worth it?
You might be surprised.
But if they saw our score on the thumbnail, they're not surprised.
Brian, stop spoiling the reviews. Released in 2012, this was developed and published by Capcom. Came out on the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, Windows, the PS4, the Xbox One, and the Switch. It's one of the, if not the most hated game in the series, by all accounts.
Hey, Jim.
Yes, Brian.
I argue that this is one of the most enjoyed games of the series.
Go on.
Funny little story, Jim. This game outsold Street Fighter 2.
What?
Even outsold Resident Evil 2.
What?
It's Capcom's third best-selling game. Look it up.
What? Wait a second.
Look at these numbers.
Wait a second. I'll be damned. There's no way that's right.
Jim, this game is just like Shakira. The hips don't lie.
God damn it. Well, is Shakira worthy of all these sales? Let's find out.
Damn right she is.
Oh, she is. So, graphics. This is probably one of the best looking games you're going to find from the 7th gen. Look at these 3D models. Look at the level of detail and just all the movement. Look at everything that's going on at one time. The backgrounds are so detailed and diverse, and just there's so much going on here. The lighting effects, the weather effects, just every little piece of detail, you can tell that they put a lot of love into it. And the monster transformations, it's really some of the most impressive looking changes to creatures that you'll find out there. It's as gory and bloody as ever, but it has a very striking look. And you look even more at just all these different effects. Like, look at even the very beginning of the game. You have these lightning effects that are just bouncing off the room and bouncing off your character. You have all of this ambient light coming in from outside and from different set pieces where everything's on fire around you and all of it's just reflecting off your character. Like, they really made it feel like a real world here. So, with all that being said, we could not help but give it 10s. This game is just, with the minor exception of a little bit of choppiness during some of the cutscenes, it's basically as perfect as you're going to get during this generation. And when it comes to beer, you don't need any. When it comes to sound, this, just like the graphics, is really well done. I'll start with the voice acting, and really it's pretty much excellent. All the characters that you know from before that come back do their roles and they reprise them very well. All the new characters are well acted, even if a lot of the side characters for a lot of these missions can be kind of bland. The music, it's really well composed. It's kind of got that itis of these last couple games where it's really well done, but it's just not memorable. But it also really captures the spirit of the game. This is almost straight up entirely an action game with horror elements, so you just have these big, bombastic, pulse-pounding kind of music pieces for the big action scenes. And then when you have some of the sadder moments, it's really somber. And then even just the ambient kind of noise that can set up and kind of try and build the tension in this game during the quieter parts. It's all really well done. It's not much more I can say than that. So we decided to give it 8s. And when it comes to beer, I'll just give it 1 beer because I wanted to hear some bigger booms.
The control. Depending on if you enjoy the control schemes from Resident Evil 4 and 5 will really dictate whether you enjoy this one. However, there were some slight improvements made to the Resident Evil 5 system, which Jim and I actually really enjoyed. You still have a very simplistic button layout. You have a run button, an attack button, your aim, shoot. You can pull up with the bumpers your knife. You can throw grenades with quick select. However, the mechanics we appreciate the most come in the form of 1, your quick selection is made even simpler. You have 3 main tiers between your weapons, special items, and healing, and then you can just use the D-pad to select. the healing in this game is just really mainstream because they recognize at this point you're dealing with an action game. So after you combine some herbs, it's just a much quicker experience, so you feel like you're fiddling with the menu a whole lot less. And we also appreciate the action point system in this game because you could do things like quick shots or bigger melee moves, and quite honestly, it just flowed really smooth, and coming from a series where control was not always at the top of the pile, we appreciate what this game tried to do. So, I gave it an 8, Jim gave it a 9. There really wasn't a ton to complain about here. Once again, the characters may have felt a little bit sluggish during their runs, but it was usually compensated with a really high detection of if you had to do a quick time event or jump over someone or hit an enemy. So when it comes to beer, I'll add 1 because I still feel people shit on this game a bit too much, and this is the first of probably many we're going to have to add for all you haters out there. The gameplay. While I usually give Jim shit for being way too long during this section, unfortunately, I have to go into a bit of detail to really explain what Resident Evil 6 is all about, so Jim can hate on me at the end of this speech. This was the first Resident Evil to offer 4 unique campaigns with 4 major protagonists, and the easiest way to kind of go through this would be just a quick rundown of what each campaign was. So with Campaign 1, you're Leon and you're partnered with a Secret Service agent, Helena Harper. Without going into too much detail, the president gets killed, there's a new virus released, and of course there's a big bad guy who's been behind it all. And if you want to consider this a spoiler, there's going to be much more, so just hang along. In addition, you have Chris Redfield, who's partnered with this guy Piers, and he's still running the BSAA and just tracking down all these bioterrorisms. You have to face a lot of those Java creatures, which basically just make an appearance from 5. So his more or less feels like a rehash of Resident Evil 5 at the end of the day. The third campaign, you play as Jake Mueller, and he teams up with Sherry Birkin from Resident Evil 2. I don't want to reveal too much from his campaign, but his is a little unique because while it's still very action heavy, you seem to rely a lot more on your melee skills, like doing these powerful punches and all these crazy ass wrestling moves. It just seems a little bit more geared towards that way. And then the final is Ada Wong, and she's actually all by herself. Now, her campaign is almost a little more stealth-driven, but they do a very poor job of driving home the stealth because you get recognized while you're trying to sneak around all the time, and you can use her crossbow, which is a one-hit kill, but honestly, it doesn't work that well. The only campaign that I felt had any element of horror is really Leon, and that's only for about halfway through his campaign. Now, the unique thing, not only with the fact that you have these 4 campaigns, is that they all intermingle. It's kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie where all the characters kind of come together at some point, and you get to play it from different viewpoints. That's a really unique thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the Originality, but here's our biggest complaint with the gameplay, because most people just hate the fact it's strictly an action game, but Jim and I, honestly, we were frigging exhausted by the end of each of these scenarios. Each one of these can take up to 6 or 7 hours, depending on how fast you play. And if you're Jim, they take almost 10 hours, because he takes forever. Hey! Am I wrong? Do my hips lie?
God damn it.
So, it's just, the game can really quickly wear out its welcome. There are some really cool set pieces and really cool monsters you have to fight, but you're just going to be begging for a save point or some kind of checkpoint. Other than that, you do have the Mercenaries mode that reappears, which is always a nice welcome for those of you who like playing through that. Jim and I, we enjoyed it, but we're not going back. What I was most impressed with is this Agent Hunt mode, which actually allows you to take control of random enemies and join in on other people's campaigns. So that was a really unique thing, but I was shocked as shit when we were playing through this game that there's still servers where people are playing. And actually I managed to put down someone in their campaign as one of these random zombies. It's a cool little twist if you want to play as the monsters, and other Resident Evil games would later come on and just try to really capitalize on that. But this was one of the first games to do it kind of well. And finally, the last change I want to mention is the fact that while you're collecting the drop skill points from all the enemies you defeat, you can not only upgrade your weapons, but you have these specific skills or perks, whatever you want to call them, and they can affect your gameplay by making your firearms stronger, or doing this really unique one called the Lone Wolf ability, which actually allows you to remove your partner, making the game a little more difficult depending on how you play. So it's nice little added touches, but nothing that really revolutionized the way you were going to play the game to begin with. All in all, as far as the gameplay is concerned, while we didn't love the length of these, and a lot of this just felt like rehash from previous games, there were really cool moments and boss fights that I still look back and actually kind of cherish. I still don't get the absolute hate for the gameplay of this game. When it comes to scores, we both gave it a 7. And when it comes to beer, I'm going to add 2, because god damn are you going to be thirsty by the time you end any of these campaigns.
So, Originality. It's just a lot of what Bri already said with the changes to the control scheme, the way that you can quickly swap between your items and your weapons, the fact that all the main playable characters all are kind of different from each other in how they play, the fact that it's the first game in the series to have 4-player co-op in certain sections, the fact that you have the Agent Hunt mode itself, and even in the PC version, there's this secondary sub-mod called No Mercy that has the characters from Left 4 Dead 2 in it, so that's cool. And then even with the general gameplay where you can roll in any direction and you can slide and you can shoot while sliding. Stuff like that to make it a more fleshed out actiony experience. So Brian gave it a 6 and I gave it a 7. A lot of it at its core is these little improvements here and there, but there are some major gameplay ones as well. And when it comes to beer, I'm going to give it 2 beers. 1 for the variation in the gameplay, and 2 for really the ability to come in and out of games as you please.
The replayability. I'm just still exhausted from talking about the gameplay so much, so...
Hey, Bri.
Yeah?
Gameplay's a little tough, huh? Doing it all the time? Heavy wears the crown.
Well, when you're talking about a game that has almost 29 hours of content versus when you talk about games that only last an hour, yeah, it is a little tough. Anyway, the replayability is pretty off the charts, as you would probably expect. You have the multiplayer, you have the online, the Agent Hunt, but just the fact if you strictly looked at this as a single-player game, you have all 4 campaigns, and you actually have the ability to switch between the main protagonist and the secondary character as well, so if you wanted to say that's added layers, that's pretty crazy too. Add in all those random skills you can get, and there's a lot of different ways you can play through. The endings, I guess this isn't a spoiler, aren't going to change, but I guess your overall feel could. So, we both gave it 8s. And honestly, as far as beer goes, this is one department you don't need to critique the game. You get a lot of bang for your buck when you bought this at a base copy. So, overall, I guess if we're being honest, we don't get all the hate for this game. Sure, as I've said, it's super repetitive. It takes fucking forever to get through those campaigns, but it's an okay game.
Yeah, it's surprisingly deep in content and just options. I really think, here's what I think happened with this. Combination of bad timing, bad lineage of games coming before it, and kind of a good idea with the execution.
Yeah.
Because like in a lot of ways, like we said, it's like they went, oh, people like Left 4 Dead, let's make our own. So they tried to incorporate all that within a normal Resident Evil, but making it still more action and isn't as horror-based. It's a weird mishmash.
Yeah.
But it's still a pretty good game. It just wears out its welcome.
Yeah, so for us, we each gave it a 7. It's above average, but by no means would it be our favorite. And when we combined all of our scores together, it actually comes out to a 7.8. For some people, that's going to be way too high, but for us, it's kind of where our gut told us anyway. It's a little bit higher than RE5, but it's still not in that upper echelon. It's a game that doesn't deserve as much hate as it gets.
Brian, would you say it's a top 10 Resident Evil game?
I guess the folks will have to wait and see, won't they?
I mean, logic says no.
Some could say it's a top 3 Resident Evil game.
Science might say different?
Some have said it's a top 3 Capcom game of all time. As a bestseller.
You mean when we said it about 10 minutes ago?
Jim, continuity.
God damn it. Let us know below what you guys think about this game. This one got heavily requested, so I'm sure you guys have opinions, and let us know if you've actually played it too, or spent more than 10 minutes with it.
Don't slam the dislike.
I don't care, it's engagement. It still helps us. Don't tell the trolls that, it still helps.
Alright, guys.
Bye!
When it comes to beer pairing, I decided to pair this game with the Deschutes Brewery's The Stoic. This is a Belgian quad, and naturally I wanted to go for a quadruple beer because this game offers 4 unique campaigns, and this is one hell of a delicious beer. Coming in at 11%, one bottle is going to get you through at least halfway through each campaign. So, if you can, grab a few bottles, sit back, and enjoy all this content. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.